I need to give you a body of work so you can understand. Let me go to Trap so he can teach me. Let me go to Trap so I can understand. The reason why we can't effectively dominate the market is because we don't truly understand what's going on in the market. And we don't understand what's going on in the market, how can we function inside of the chaos? What's good, fam? It's your boy, the Wall Street Trapper. I'm about to break y'all into something which you need to know, especially when you come to investing, especially when you get in the stock market, especially if you trade options. You need to understand about QE, which is quantitative easing. So this is when the government puts money in the stock market. Think about COVID, right? When the market when they print a whole lot of money and you think it's free money, right? That's for a reason. They want to boost the economy. So the goal is to boost the economy up. The goal is to make people want to spend money. The goal is to not people feel the hard time. So let's talk about that, right? First, you got to go to the central banks first, right? So the central banks is where the money get printed at, right? So we got a circle right here. They are the money printer. They are the ultimate money printing machine. So when you look at the Fed, Jerome Powell and his team, they like, all right, their goal is to check price stability, right? Make sure prices are stable in the economy, and also to make sure that people are spending money, make sure that banks are lending money, right? So right now we're gonna talk about just how money is moving and how it gets moved in the economy. This is important because all of this affects stock prices, right? So first, the central bank is gonna analyze the economy. They're gonna analyze housing. They're gonna analyze consumer price index. They're gonna analyze what's the prices on houses. They're gonna analyze unemployment, jobs. They're gonna analyze all that, right? And if that's slowing down or if that's threatened, they're gonna come up with a bill, say, yo, we gonna pump this much money into the economy. So what they're gonna do is they're gonna print money by the commercial banks that we use every day. They're gonna sell bonds to the bank. So the central bank gonna print money and they're gonna put money into the economy by doing one thing, giving the central banks money. They're gonna take the money, they're gonna sell bonds. So what is a bond? We talked about this before. A bond is, let's say I wanna buy a building and I don't wanna take out a loan. So what I could do is say, yo, I'm gonna write these bonds. Let's say I have $100,000. I write 10 bonds for $10,000 a piece. So with those 10 bonds, I'll say, I'll give you a return on these bonds at what? 10%. So what happens is, if you buy 5 of these bonds that are issued at $10,000 and they paying 10%, that's what? $1,000, right? Y'all with me? So $10,000, 10%, $1,000. You bought 5 of them, so every year you'll get $5,000. At the end of the 3 years, you'll get that money back. Well, the central banks prints money. The central bank go buy assets. From the assets, they get the cash. They get the asset, they distribute the cash. The commercial banks, which is the banks we know, they then take that money and they sell bonds. So they do a few things. They sell bonds back to the money printer, but they also, this is where the money gets split up at in 3 ways. The central bank gonna print the money. Money they're gonna go to the commercial banks, which is the big banks. They're gonna take the money and split it 3 ways. First way they're gonna do, businesses come get loans. It's the first way. Small businesses run America. That's what that's a bulk of your money right here. Small business, so we're gonna wrap that up. Boom. This is gonna stimulate the economy because the small business is gonna do what? Products, services, right? Payroll, right? Boom. Next, it's gonna go to the people, right? So people gonna get money. During COVID, how did you use your money? They gave it to you in the form of what? Stimulus checks, right? But also what the small banks gonna do is they'll give you loans. Loans on houses, loans on cars. Also, you taking money, credit cards, right? So now it's going to the people. Personal loans, right? So there's loans. So that's the second way the money gets spent. The third way the commercial money gets spent is through what's called bank to bank, right? So bank to bank. So a lot of times they'll do what's called overnight banking, right? Where the big bank will loan the small bank money, and then by the end of the 24 hours, they got to send that money back. That's called overnight banking with a high interest rates. But another way is, so now the commercial banks lend money to the smaller banks, right? We talking credit unions, because they might don't go straight here. They might don't go straight to the plug. So they can go here and get it. So here's the 3 ways that the money gonna get stimulated. Now watch this. Like we the only one do a live show with this much production. Like we bar none, we just different. We not in competition with nobody.
To see somebody that looks like us talk about stocks, because I had never seen that before.
You know, we buy during the drought, and in recession is the best time to buy.
I feel a whole bunch of wealth up in here, y'all.
Someone who gives me raw and uncut information.
I know how to break down a company. I know how to invest.
Being a more confident investor.
That Wallstreet does look like us, no cliche.
I would no longer fertilize my fears.
That financial trauma has to be broken. We gotta understand that we are more than consumers.
One share at a time can change your life, change your life.
What we doing? What we doing?
We're printing money, baby.
I think over the last couple years, just being in America has made everyone realize that there's no such thing as job security.
It's time to take accountability. It's time to be responsible. It's time to make the sacrifices. It's time to put in the work, because this time it done got worse. Because this time ain't no saving you.
Wallstreet looks like everything on Pittsburgh, man. Stop playing.
The big bank lends out bulk of money, but the small bank is where you're getting most of the loans, most of the homeowners, most of the mortgages, car loans, gonna come from your smaller bank, your regional banks, your credit unions. They lend out 60% of their money to the neighborhoods. I want y'all to know that. This is a fact. Now, all of this allows money to increase because America is a consumer-based economy. So because America is a consumer-based economy, in order for America to thrive, money has to be being spent. The minute no money ain't being spent, the minute you see America start to panic. But here's the downfalls of that. As we print all this money, what happens is inflation goes up. So let's go here. All right, so here's the 3 downsides to it. First, the first thing, I should have put this first, is this causes inflation. Now, typically, inflation in America is at 2.5% or 3%. So what that means is that's how your money being taxed, right? That's inflation. So right now, inflation is about 6%. That's high. It was at 9% at its peak. At its peak, that's when you saw banks collapsing, interest rates too high. Why? So banks are known for lending money in low interest rate environments, right? That's what they was used to. So when we got to 9%, now what happens is the banks got in a bind because people weren't able to do what? Pay the money back. So if the people can't pay the banks back, then the banks can't do what? Pay the commercial banks back. Notice, recently, when we had the banks failing, it wasn't none of your big banks. It wasn't the big 6. It wasn't JP Morgan. It wasn't Citibank. It wasn't Wells Fargo. It wasn't Bank of America. It wasn't none of those banks. It was just smaller banks. Why? Because they tend to be over leveraged. They tend to give out more money than they have, which is why, in most cases, if everybody went to the bank to get their money, the bank wouldn't have it. Which is what happened with SVB. What happened was when somebody told the bank, hey, check this out. They not ready for no 9% interest rate. That might go get your money up out of there. So you know what happened? You know how I go, especially, say, B, I'm about to snatch my money out of SVB, yo. Go get your money up out of there. They barely holding on by a thread. You know what happened when B said it? B told his partner, so then they had a mild bank run. Everybody went and tried to get their money, which caused SVB to do what? Collapse. Why? Because think of the name of the bank. Silicon Valley Bank. Most of their money was in startup companies that wasn't generating profit. But in their mind, down the line, the company gonna generate profit, I'm gonna get the money back. Well, in a 9% interest rate environment, them companies like, you know what? There's no room for growth. We gone. Again, money starts to be in circulation. People can bet on growth, but when growth is not in the environment, what happens? Nobody don't want to bet on growth. If nobody don't want to bet on growth, guess what? Small banks collapse. Why? 2008 mortgage crisis. What happened? Lower income people didn't have money. Things got tight. What happened? Banks need to get saved. They not gonna run out of money. Big dog ain't gonna run out of money. They gonna buy assets. Now here's the crazy part. These banks right here, commercial banks, they gonna buy all the, watch this, distressed assets. I need you to get in your commercial bank mindset. I want you to think about the world as this. When the world is thriving, you won't be putting as much money on the side as you can, but in good investments, but you won't be liquid. So when the world go in distress mode, you could buy assets. This the wealth game, y'all. This the wealth game. All right, let's go a little further. So printing all that money causes inflation. The next thing is the economy may not respond. So every time you put that much money in the economy, people may not always respond to it. Depending on the financial state or what part of the business cycle we're in, the world not respond to it. But lastly, this is the one that's dangerous. The bank may not always put the money out. You're gonna see some banks just significantly increasing their cash to assets. The banks don't operate how we think they do. So people always saying like, the banks want the houses. No, they don't. No, they don't. I want you to get that. I know we heard that. The bank wants you to default on your home. No, they don't. The bank want the cash flow. The bank they don't want to sit on their inventory. The bank wants the cash flow. Banks like to have cash moving. Nobody wants this. That mindset is only for people who don't understand the wealth game. Nobody wants to just be sitting on an abandoned house. Nobody doesn't want to be sitting on an abandoned building. We need it to be cash flowing. So the bank only wants to keep the cash so it can find a cash flowing asset to put it in. Here's what I also want to tell you. People aren't good investments. Okay, so even when the central bank gets the money and they give it to the commercial bank and the commercial bank decides that they don't want to get the money out, it's because the commercial bank has found a safer place to put the money at. So what the commercial bank might do is, instead of giving it to people, they may go give it to another bank. They may go buy a treasury bond. That's a safer bet than having the money, giving it to people. So with this episode, I just wanted to walk us through what quantitative easing is. Quantitative easing is when the central banks of America or whatever, they think the way to stimulate the economy is by pumping money into the economy. They pump money into the economy by buying the assets of the economy. So they take money off the balance sheet. Also understand that the central banks and America or whatever are two separate entities. They are not a part of the government, right? So you hear the Fed is not a part of the government. The Fed is the Fed and the government is the government. It's two different things. That's why they always have a Fed meeting and people from the government are questioning the Fed. So when you hear Jerome Powell talking, he's gonna be answering questions from senators, lawmakers, because they are trying to figure out what's the best thing to do, and they're trying to figure out what's the ideology behind you raising rates or declining rates or pausing rates. So right now, as we make this video, the Fed just said we're gonna pause on rates. Now, here's the crazy part. We gotta get inflation down to 2%. In order to get inflation down to 2%, we at about 5% right now, people need to lose jobs. The goal is for the people to stop spending money. As long as people are spending money, inflation can't come down. So I want you to understand right now, Be mindful of what you're spending your money on because things are gonna get tougher. It's your boy, the Wall Street Chapter, man. I definitely just want to give y'all some game right quick, break down this little money game for y'all. Man, look, man, I love y'all, I appreciate y'all. Like this, subscribe it, send it out to your people, man. I'm out.